Morning, Heather.
Morning, Serena. You're just on mute. Sorry, I apologize for we're a little slow.
No problem. Good morning, everybody.
Okay. Are we ready to continue on in our first meeting?
I just need to get logged in so that I can. I can show Serena's. We need to report out too.
Yes, that's where we're at. Are you all set to,
Yeah, so at 9:38, the mayor is reporting out that consideration was given to matters pertaining to personnel about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
okay, mover and seconder for that? Aletham and Rowe, all in favor? That's carried. Again, certainly a reminder to disclose any pecuniary interest at our council meeting, delegations, first delegation.
So Serena, I will do your presentation when you're ready. Just let me know when you want the slides up.
Okay, if we're ready, I'm ready.
So this is Serena Skulls, and she will be doing the presentation on the landfill. Just let me share it just 1 second.
Perfect. Okay, so that's great. Thank you. So yeah, as Jan said, I'm Serena Scholes. I work for Blue Metric Environmental. Blue Metric has been working with you guys for a number of years, supporting you on your landfill. And usually I meet you a little bit earlier in the year, but this year we're doing this in June. So we're going to go through the results from 2021, as well as I have some updates for the spring of 2022. If you just, here we go. Yeah, the presentation outline. So the first two topics basically cover what was included in the 2021 annual monitoring report, which was submitted to the Ministry of the Environment at the end of April. That's when it's required as per your approval for the landfill. Topic 3 will be, as I mentioned, an update from the spring. We've got all of our results in, and actually I have a spring report pending to send to you in draft, probably early next week. And topic 4 is just some future considerations and recommendations to go over for your landfill. You want to go to the next slide. Topic 1 again will be the environmental monitoring program from last year. Just so you know, I did get our staff to take some new pictures because, you know, I don't want the presentation to be the same every year. A lot of the information stays the same, but, you know, we have to keep looking at it every year as per your approval. Go to the next page. Just a reminder, I'm sure all of you are familiar with where your landfill is located with relations to with offices and the town of Rodney. Next slide. What I've done with your site plan here is I've put some yellow dots where the monitoring wells are located at your landfill site. This is an aerial view. You can see basically that we have monitoring wells within the landfill footprint as well as around and surrounding. And actually this is an older aerial photo that was taken in 2016. We were able to update that this spring. So in the future, under topic 3, I'll be able to show you that update. But this is what would have been included with your 2021 report that went to the Ministry of the Environment. So what we do every year, we go out twice a year in the spring and the fall. We collect groundwater levels in all of those wells that were the yellow dots on the last slide. We look at the methane levels as well as we collect actual samples. We do an operations inspection, which basically goes through, you know, making sure that the waste is covered and that everything is organized. The recyclables are all in good order. And as you probably imagine, over the last few years, that has not been an issue in any way. It's really well managed at this point. And then we also do spring and fall reports for you. Those aren't required to go to the ministry. What does go is the annual report in April of the following year. So first I'm going to talk about groundwater levels and flow direction. So you can see here the blue stick-up casing, that's a monitoring well that was installed by a drill. We also have to, for some of the wells, well, in particular, we've got one that's right in a wetland. We're not allowed to install using machinery. So that's a piezometer that's basically hand driven into the wetland so that we can sample the water from those locations. Go to the next slide. This is showing you in spring of 2021, which way the groundwater flow was moving. And this is typically what we see. It moves towards the east of the landfill. We basically do get the groundwater levels and they're all surveyed in all those wells, and we're able to calculate, which way groundwater would flow. So that's spring. If you go to the next slide, this was fall. So these were both included again in that 2021 report. In the fall, water levels were lower than normal. I think we've been seeing that across the province. So the groundwater flow changed a little bit, and there was a bit of water flowing back onto the site from the south, as well as a component flowing to the west. But typically, that happens historically based on groundwater elevations and how dry the season is. This is just this is a new picture of our co-op student Ethan taking the methane reading at one of the monitoring wells. He's using a gem check, which is specifically designed to measure landfill gas. If you go to the next slide, I can just give you a little heads up. Typically, methane is noted in the wells, like within the landfill footprint. So that makes the most sense. It's actually drilled and installed in there, so we'll get methane readings there. We also do look to see if there'd be any concern of gas buildup in like any of your structures. I know you have a sea container out there and a tendon trailer. The levels in all the wells surrounding were either not detected or below trigger, well below trigger levels. So there's no concern for methane gas vapor leaving the landfill footprint. Here's just I basically just wanted to show you that where that yellow circle is, or orange circle, is where we see methane gas. The rest of the wells, nothing. So groundwater quality, we collect samples from those wells and piezometers that I showed you a picture of earlier. This is just a picture of staff getting those samples, following all our quality control measures to make sure we're doing it correctly. We identified years ago parameters, like chemical parameters that would be identified as a leachate indicator parameter. These include these ones listed here: alkalinity, arsenic chloride, DOC, iron, and sodium. Now, just so you know, some of these are significantly more representative of a landfill leachate for a municipal solid waste landfill. So those would be chloride and arsenic. The remainder tend to be good indicators, but we might call them something like a secondary leachate indicator, because truthfully, the source could be something outside of landfill. So you have a number of wetlands around your landfill, and so that could definitely lead to different levels of alkalinity and DOC. Any roads, I don't think it's the case here because you're well set off the road, but if there's road salting, we often have to look at the ratio between chloride and sodium to make sure it's not affecting the groundwater in wells near roadways. So we don't just look at those leachate indicator parameters. We look at a number of other items that would be a landfill trigger, like ammonia, organic nitrogen, color. but typically chloride is the most mobile and conservative leachate indicator parameter. That's what we're looking for. It goes through first if there's been a leachate release from the landfill. Go to the next slide. Back in, I think it was 2017, we developed a trigger mechanism and contingency plan. We worked with the ministry for this. Now you've seen this slide before, but I will run through it. You know, basically we have all those yellow wells that I showed you on one of the first slides. There's a tier 1 alert would be issued for trigger wells. So we identify wells north, east, west, and south that are actually your trigger wells. So they're close to the property boundary. If they exceed if a chemical parameter, which is the leachate indicator parameter, exceeds a certain concentration over a certain amount of time, then it triggers this tier 2 assessment where we look and see if it's truly a landfill related source. And again, as I said, frequently we do get these triggers and we can establish that, you know, this is DOC related to plants decaying in a wetland versus the landfill. If there was a concern, if we thought it could be leachate and landfill related, we would go to tier 3 confirmation and take monthly samples for 3 months. And then if there was truly an issue, we would reach out to the ministry and work with the ministry and yourselves to come up with a way to correct the issue. So if you go to the next slide, I can actually show you, these are the wells we've identified as trigger wells. So if you recall, the groundwater flow is typically to the east. So we have monitoring wells 19, 12, and 9, sort of doing the south and east. And then if there is a component of flow, like in the fall of 2021, going towards the west or north, then we look at monitoring wells 1 and 10. Just a little bit more background on what we're actually comparing the chemistry to. There's something called the reasonable use guideline or a limit that's actually been a well-established means of evaluating landfills in Ontario. It's set forth by the Ministry of the Environment. It looks at a background well, so a well that's well away from your landfill. So in this case, we have monitoring well 14, which is like further down. You encounter it before you hit the gate of the landfill. You look at the Ontario drinking water standards, and it's actually a formula calculation to come up with that trigger criteria. At the ministry's request, it's 75% of the RUL, but when we do our assessment, we say, okay, this got triggered, but we're still within 100% if it's a concern. So we are looking at all those things. So for, this is for the 2021 results. We had tier 1 alerts at monitoring well 1, which just as a reminder was to the north, monitoring well 9, which is to the south, and 19R, which is the piezometer installed to the east of the landfill in that wetland. So all other wells were okay. So that led to tier 2 assessments. If you go to the next slide, looking at monitoring well 1, you know, as I mentioned, the trigger parameters are 75%. We noted that they were all within 100% of the RUL. As a reminder, alkalinity is the measure of water's ability to neutralize an acid. And really, truly, it's not a full leachate indicator. So again, we would put that chloride and arsenic as primary, and we consider this a secondary. So we didn't see anything else to flag our concern here. So no tier 3 confirmation was required. It was determined that it was not required at the time. This is not true leachate impact being shown at monitoring well 1. Here's just a little graph of alkalinity in particular at that well. So, you know, we've had much higher levels in the past. That looks like that's back in like 2010, but you can't see really an overall trend increasing. It sort of fluctuates between spring and the fall. So there's 2 other locations that triggered the tier 2 assessment. Monitoring well 9 is located south of the landfill footprint, a little south and east, I guess you could say. Again, results were less than 100% of the RUL. DOC measures organic matter, and we've identified it many times in our reports that this is not solely related to a landfill. It can also be related to plant decay, common with wetlands. Just as a note, in the fall, monitoring well 9, the groundwater flow was actually flowing towards the landfill too. So really it wasn't acting as a true trigger well during this sampling event. So again, we decided tier 3 confirmation was not required at this time, and we've reported that to the ministry. Next, this slide shows you a number of the different leachate indicator parameters. DOC is your blue one. So it does have a little blip up there at the end. But again, if you look back through time, it's very, it fluctuates. It kind of goes up and down. There's definitely not an increasing trend noted. Many of these parameters are higher in the spring and lower in the fall. Last one for the 2021 results related to iron. Back in 2019, this was first noted, and we actually did do tier 3 monitoring, but we've established again and shared with the ministry that it's not fully attributed to landfill activities. We thought it might be due to localized impacts from the metal storage. I know that that's been taken care of, but again, it takes water time to flow through the ground, so it will take some time to clear that up. If you go to the next slide, you can see that iron is increasing. I want you to see the next slide, however, which shows chloride, which I mentioned again is in fact the most conservative landfill indicator parameter, and it's well below the 75% reasonable use limit as well as the 100%, and it fluctuates again spring and fall, but there's been no trend identified. So as a result, we confirmed that we did not need to do further sampling. So just a summary that was presented to the ministry back in the 2021 report, groundwater flow continues to be towards the east, but we're not starting to notice in fall events when water levels might be a bit lower that there are components that flow to the north. And then this time we had actually water flowing to the landfill from the south. There's no issues with methane. Tier 1 alerts weren't noted, and tier 2 discussions and a full analysis was completed, and it was confirmed that tier 3 monitoring wasn't needed. We actually, for the first time, decided to submit a recommendation to change our trigger plan slightly, because as you've probably gathered from my conversation today, as well as the previous presentations that I've done, DOC, alkalinity, and iron frequently are initiating this tier 1 alert. We think that we should probably go back now to the trigger plan and identify primary as chloride and arsenic and secondary as the others, and just change the way a tier 1 alert is initiated, because this way, it saves time and money if you're not rehashing each time when it's truly not a landfill related impact. We can go on to topic 2, which also was covered in the 2021 annual monitoring report. It's basically the design and operations. We've got some nice new pictures here showing your waste transfer station. Going back in time a little bit, we did a survey back in 2016 using, it was called at the time the unmanned aerial vehicle. It's a drone. And we were able to identify places where material can be placed versus where there's no more space left. The images here show you in the cool colors, space is available. The warmer colors, you're at grade or there's no space left. So that was used for the 2021 report as the basis for what the remaining landfill capacity was. Each year I get the data from Lee for what material has gone on, and we can project how much space will be remaining. This really fluctuates on what's actually taken into the landfill. And I know that that changes year to year, so we recalculate it from year to year. At the time of the 2021 report, we used the 2016 survey, and we used an annual waste input rate of 213 metric tons to estimate that the life of the landfill is 36 years. Just to go to the next slide, we'll just dive in a little bit deeper on the data that was given to me from Lee that we included in the report, because the ministry does require this in the report. So, municipal wide curbside, there was 1,060 metric tons collected. The waste transfer site collected 215. And it looks like some large item collection was canceled back in 2021 because of COVID. So that information is all shared in your report to the ministry. Next slide talks about waste diversion. Again, you have multiple streams. So you have the municipal wide curbside, but also you're accepting some at the transfer site and the transfer station. So that those numbers all, again, are presented and provided in the report to the ministry. So the summary provided, or a summary of what was provided to the ministry in the 2021 report, was that the estimated life was 36 years. There was a remaining capacity calculated using those estimated annual fill rates and the 2016 survey of around 21,000 cubic meters. We recommended doing a UAV survey again in 2022. Typically, municipal landfills are doing this at least every 5 years. And so this was, we are on the 6th year. Topic 3 is 2022 activities. So if you go to the next slide, the first thing we did was we actually did get a survey done. So we have new information for you, which is great. We previously called it the UAV unmanned aerial vehicle. We changed the name to RPA, which is remotely piloted aircraft. It's the same drone. And I wanted to show you, so the pictures here are sort of our company stock images of what the drone looks like. The background is not your landfill, just so you know. That's not what it looks like. We did have our geomatics group go out there and do a survey of your landfill. It produces a 3D model and also takes an aerial photo. So here's our new updated aerial photo. It will be used in all future reports. Nothing too new to report there. If you go to the next slide, what we do is we compare the ground surface to the final contours, and I also included the 2016 surface here. So the orange line is the 2016 survey, the red line is the 2022, and the blue line is your final contours for your landfill when it actually is closed. So there's still, just be aware of the scale, but there is still capacity, obviously, is what this is showing you. This is the updated comparison showing, again, the cool colors like blue and green are showing you where there's capacity, and the warmer colors are where you're at grade, or there's actually a part that's slightly above there. The estimated remaining capacity from May 2022 is almost 25,000 cubic meters. So this is more than what we presented in the 2021 report, and I just told you about, because again, as I said, we were basing it off 2016 survey and assumed annual input rates. So this is good. This is good news. It does. It increases your estimated life for the landfill to 42 years from 36, I believe. So it's good news, and it's great information to have to share with the ministry. We also have already completed spring monitoring that was done on May 12th. As I mentioned, I have an interim report in draft to send out. I'll send it to Lee probably early next week. The groundwater flow, I can confirm, was going to the east, which we've seen typically. So what we saw in fall 2021 with the mounding and the flow north to the landfill from the southern boundary was not present again. It's more typical to historical findings. There was no concerns with methane. There were tier 1 alerts, the same exact ones that we've been seeing from year to year. DOC was added though to monitoring well 1, 12, and 19. If you go to the next slide, I just talk a little bit more about DOC. It was also less dissolved organic carbon. It was also noted in the background well of this event, all at very similar concentrations. So again, we looked at it, we looked at all the data and all the other parameters and determined that tier 3 monitoring is not required, and we'll put that in our report. Again, this just solidifies, I think, this need to, it's not a need, but it would be recommended to make some slight adjustments to the trigger mechanism and contingency plan. I spelled out, if you go to the next slide, I spelled out what I would like to do. Basically identify of that list of leachate indicator parameters, the chemistry, I'd like to spell out what's a primary one and what's a secondary one. And instead of triggering for any of those, say at least one primary along with another primary or secondary leachate indicator parameter should be triggered. And I will tell you that we did put this recommendation into the 2021 annual monitoring report as well. So if we go to, future considerations and recommendations, we're almost done here. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, but if you go to the next slide, we talked about estimated life is at about 42 years at this time. If you're inputting waste at the same rate that you did for 2021, the waste transfer station that you've got set up can continue indefinitely. That's not something you do need to change. Because the material is just being accepted and then taken to another site. If you go to the next slide, just to speak to when your landfill is ready for closure, you have an approval that says that basically 3 years prior to closure of the landfill, you must provide the ministry with a closure plan. And this sort of outlines, what the end use and appearance would look like of the landfill space, and it has to be rolled out to the community. And there needs to be a plan for post-closure care. You can't just stop and leave it. They have sort of a minimum amount of time that you're still looking at the groundwater and surface water if it's necessary, and making sure you'll be putting a cap on there, like a clay cap with topsoil as well placed on top so that it can become vegetated, just to make sure that everything is in order and it's still maintained. Actually, in your design and operations report, it does state that the end use of the landfill is green space, and it gives some details on how that cap will be placed, what it will be made up of. If you go to the next slide, our only real recommendation moving forward would be to consult your local ministry district office, which is in London, with updating that trigger plan that I mentioned. So we did actually define it within your 2021 report. So I can almost guarantee they haven't reviewed it yet. So they may come back and say, oh, that's a good idea, or we want a little bit more information on that. So if that happens, we will definitely just respond and make sure that's taken care of. I've had a few clients now where their ECAs have been amended to say that if you want to make changes to something like this, you just provide a standalone letter. And I do have some template letters set up for that now because we have gone through that process. So that's another option. The one I would like to avoid is a full environmental compliance approval amendment application. That's just a little more onerous for administrative time and getting it through. It is a possibility, but I think what might be the best bet, and I'll talk with Lee about this, would be to just reach out to your district officer, their environmental officer who would be doing your inspections first, and see what they think would be the best way. And if we need it, because the truth is the trigger plan works. It's just a way to make it a little bit more efficient for everybody, that it's, save some time. We know what the groundwater's quality is, and we want to only really focus on if there's a landfill impact versus other potential sources. And I think if we go to the next slide, that is it. So your picture on your left would be when I first came to site in, I believe, 2007. And then this picture is from spring, and it just looks so beautiful. I love that picture. So is there any questions?
Richard.
Well, hello. It's good news anyway that the landfill has got a longer life. 42 years is really good. But certainly with our curbside pickup and most of the garbage going out of the area, surely our monitoring wells should over a period of time get better and better. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. And so what we're seeing is there's a couple things like the iron I told you about that has been increasing, but majority of things are not. And I think we're just going to see a little bit of that as the mound stabilizes. Once you guys took over operations of this landfill, you really got it back on track, and that's just needs to stabilize. And I think we're almost there.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Is there any way of being able to determine how much of that iron that we're getting in our test wells is naturally in the ground? Because I know where I live a long ways away from the landfill site, the iron content that I have in my water is such that it will literally seal pipes off.
Okay.
I mean, if you dig down on my farm, there's a little band of red gravel about maybe 4 inches thick that is just red.
Yeah.
And you can actually shake iron out of it. And that's what a lot of it that gets in my water. And I would imagine it's probably the same at our landfill if you were to actually look at that way that soil is made up, that that iron is just naturally in that ground and got nothing to do with the landfill at all. It's just there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we think it is. I mean, we did know there was metal storage nearby, and that was really the only landfill related source of iron that we could identify other than it being naturally there. So the ministry hasn't questioned us on saying that it's naturally there. We have had it in background. If we were required to, we could definitely do even like a test pit just to locate that location of the layer that you're talking about, do some soil testing in the wetland. But I don't want to do more if the ministry is not asking for it on that front. But again, yeah, we do have like historical data showing that there is iron in our background well in the groundwater. So yeah, I mean, it's good to hear what you're saying because it just further confirms what we've been saying and know. The only thing to really prove it would be, more like historical and background information review, which we did a lot of in around 2010. And then also we could do like some testing of the soil. But if we're not required to, I think, for now, just save the money, don't do it. Like we have enough backup that the ministry's been happy with what we've been saying.
One other question I have, do we have a check well that is offsite that we can gauge what we're getting on site too? Do we go to some of the outlying homes around the area and do a check on their wells to see that, oh, you've got the same stuff in your wells and you're a long ways away from the landfill site?
We don't do that. I have got some clients that have us sample like neighboring property domestic wells, but the one that we use as background is called monitoring well 14, and it's when you're driving into the landfill, it's right near the entrance gate, and we've determined that that's far enough away from the landfill so that it's not being impacted by it. And exactly like that's what, in the spring we see dissolved organic carbon levels all at the exact same level as in the background well, so we can confidently say that that's not an issue related to the landfill.
Right. Okay. Well,
domestic well sampling nearby that's not required by your ECA, and actually where we do it for other clients, it's more the municipality has directed us to do that because they have neighbors calling and asking.
Right. Okay, I'm glad to hear that you've got that check well. Any other questions for our consultant? Seeing none, do we have a resolution?
We don't need to have a resolution. We just were receiving her report for information, so. it's
Okay.
fine.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very confident that you're doing a good job on our behalf and because we've had a long-term relationship and I don't see that changing in the future.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Adoption of the minutes.
That the minutes of the council meeting on June 9th, 2022 be adopted as circulated and printed.
Over and seconded, moved by Rowe, seconded by Leatham, all in favor? Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting and Trust up there. Okay, all in favor, good. Pass, carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. Staff reports, planning, Heather. Good morning.
May I, you need to turn your microphone.
Not used to being in person here. It's nice to see we have a microphone system. This is great. Good morning, Mayor McPhail and members of West Elgin Council. We have a proposed severance application, file number E51/22. The severance application is to facilitate the severance of a residential parcel into 2 residential parcels. The residential parcel to be created within the settlement area of Rodney. The owner applicant is Milos Podolin, sorry. Milos, hold on. Okay, thank you. The address is 305 Furnival Road. The property to be severed will be connected, has municipal water, it needs to be connected. It'll also be connected to the municipal sewer service. Within my report, I kind of specified the lot areas, the frontages. I won't go into that detail. I will note the public meeting for the severance at Elgin County Land Division Committee meeting is scheduled for July 27th, 2022. Oh, we've got the map here. Yeah, so severed parcel identified as part 1, I outlined in red. And then the retained parcel outlined in yellow. As you'll see, that parcel goes from Furnival Road all the way on to backing onto Rideout Street. In terms of financial implications, the application fees were collected. Cash in lieu of parkland fee is required for the creation of the new lot and will be as a condition of the severance. In terms of policies and legislation, I reviewed the provincial policy statement and the proposed severance is consistent with the provincial policy statement. In terms of the County of Elgin official plan, the proposed severance application conforms to the county's official plan. Next, in terms of the West Elgin official plan, the proposed severance application conforms to the West Elgin official plan. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the proposed severed parcel is zoned residential first density. The R1 zone permits single detached dwellings. The proposed severed parcel meets the R1 zone provisions. As well, the proposed retained parcel meets the R1 and rural residential zone provisions. And I do want to note, there is the settlement area boundary is a little strange in this area. It kind of dissects in between these parcels. That is something I've noted that needs to be corrected as part of our OP update. I'm really sending that correction on to Dylan to fix. Generally in planning, we don't like to see settlement area boundaries kind of going in between properties. So that will be something that will be corrected. Therefore, the proposed severance appears to comply with the zoning bylaw. In terms of municipal department comments, the building department noted that the shed needs to be removed from the proposed severed parcel. And the reasons for that is because accessory buildings are not permitted as being the primary buildings on the property. It needs to be removed to be in compliance with the residential zone. The property owner is aware of that and they're in agreement to it. In terms of the utilities department, I want to make certain I got this correct here. Municipal water service and municipal sanitary services at the street. There is an existing curb stop. 1 new stub for each lot is required to service the lots. Further, Public Works commented that the proposed retained parcel is connected to municipal water and municipal sanitary services through 1 stub for each service that crosses over the proposed severed parcel. Need to disconnect the proposed retained parcel from the stub located on the proposed severed parcel and install and pay for a new stub for both services for the proposed retained parcel. Did I get that correctly? It's a bit of a mess in terms of servicing. It's the best way I can say it. I think I got it right. I think I understood correctly. Anyhow, needs to be corrected. Entrance permit from the county is required from Vernable Road. At the time of submission of this report, no other comments or concerns were received. In conclusion, it's the planner's opinion that the proposed lot creation would appear to be consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the Elgin County official plan, and conforms to the West Elgin official plan, complies with our zoning bylaw, and that council recommend to Elgin County that the severance be approved, subject to the municipal conditions listed in the report. Thanks.
I assume this is residential.
Yes, correct.
Would you like me to read the recommendation?
Yes, please.
The West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Heather James, planner, regarding the consent application file E5122, comments to the County of Elgin. And that West Elgin Council hereby recommends approval to the Land Division Committee for the County of Elgin for the severance application file E5122, subject to lower tier municipal conditions in Appendix 2 of this report. And further, that West Elgin Council directs administration to provide this report as municipal comment to the County of Elgin.
Okay, you've all heard the recommendation, mover and seconder. Cameron. And Talia, see, I'm looking at you now, Therese. All in favor? That's carried. Next item up, Heather again.
Okay, so the next report is the service agreement memorandum of understanding for land use planning service delivery with Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority. It's a very lengthy report. I am not going to read that out.
Please.
Just going to ask it. No, it's okay. You don't want to hear me go on for the next 15 minutes. I'm trusting council has reviewed it. Do you have any questions? Okay.
No, I think it's fairly straightforward and it's been worked on for some time. And,
There's been a lot of municipalities and a lot of planners that have commented on this. I kind of enjoyed that. I was going through and I was reading all the track changes from all the other planners across the watershed. So been reviewed extensively.
I'll read the recommendation.
please.
The West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Heather James regarding service agreement memorandum of understanding for land use planning Lower Thames Conservation Authority. That West Elgin hereby approves the service agreement memorandum of understanding for land use planning with the Lower Thames Conservation Authority in accordance with the attached agreement. And that the CIO treasurer be authorized to sign the agreement. And that the fees and charges bylaw be amended as related to planning fees as set out in the attached agreement. And that staff be directed to implement the agreement by adding additional Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority fee planning applications to planning applications as of July 1, 2022.
Okay, you all heard the recommendation, mover and seconder, please. Moved by Talia, seconded by Leatham, all in favor? That is carried. Okay, monthly activity report, Heather.
Is there any questions on my report?
Seems to be a busy time for,
It is planning is very busy.
right? Right.
June, if I would be writing your June report, it will look something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been busy.
Okay, do we need a resolution to accept that report?
Yeah, that West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Heather James, planner, regarding the May 2022 planning monthly activity report for information purposes.
Mover and seconder, Leatham and Rowe, all in favor? That is carried. How do we want to handle? We want to handle Heather's,
Going to do it on the meeting or after the meeting?
I think so.
Okay.
You know, we've got to really appreciate the work that you've done around here. Certainly, anyone that is joining us this morning have seen you in operation, looking after the planning issues in West Elgin, and I think I can speak for everyone here. We're happy that you're moving on. Certainly very happy that you're moving back into your own community. But on the other side of the coin, we're very sad to see you go.
Thank you.
Exciting time for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to be a change. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, some more responsibility, especially an area I'm not familiar with, that being economic development. But I am looking forward to learning something new and taking on new challenges.
Great, great. Well, we all wish you the very best and
Thank you.
certainly as you take on this new role, if there's anything that you need from any of our staff, I know that all you have to do is pick up the phone.
Thank you.
You'll be able to
Vice versa.
catch up on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm expecting many emails and phone calls.
that's
I
it.
just want to say, I want to thank all of council and the mayor and staff. It's been a wonderful 8 years being here, minus 2 years of maternity leave. I've enjoyed my time here, seen lots of change here in West Elgin, the change for the better, for the positive. I'm seeing this municipality growing in ways that I haven't seen before. So I'm very excited to see what the future holds for West Elgin. I've loved working with councils over the years and the staff. I am sad to leave, but it is time to move on to a new challenge and a new chapter. So thank you.
Mhm. And keep in mind, if it doesn't work out, give us a call.
I will let you know. You never know. You never know what could happen. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Randy. Oh, well, thank you, Randy.
All right, so I guess we can now move on to community operations and community service. Break, okay, yeah. I forgot what time it was. Yep,
Sorry.
recess.
Recess at 10:23.
No.
It's all, it's okay.
What's the prep forward? Ah, Friday's the last day, so you go tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
So you didn't lose any more chickens? Didn't lose any chickens? No.
Only 2 weeks old. So.
Oh, okay, they're not big fat ones.
No,
Oh, okay.
I would have fans on if they had.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to get,
No.
that's why you want to get home the other night, so you could unheard them when they'll.
Okay, are we back in, sir?
We are ready to go. I guess we're at operations and community services, report from Lee.
Lee, your microphone.
Yep, so this is just, this report is essentially just, with regards to the sanitary sewer study that was completed for the town of West Lorne back in 2021, as you remember, with the development, interest that was coming to the town, we felt it was a good idea at that time to, find out if the sanitary system within the village limits could support, the growth. So, Spreets were, hired to prepare a report based on the sanitary system, and that report's come back, and it is good news. So they did it in 2 blocks. The first block was the existing conditions, and then they also, based on the development interests that we had at the time, they estimated the added flows from those developments, and the report does show that we're in good shape, that we can support that extra development. So this is just to allocate the funds from our Ontario Invest money to pay for that report, which I will say at the time was estimated to be $25,000 to $30,000 for the report, and it did come in under budget at 21,000. So.
Any questions on Lee on that? Because we always do like good reports.
Yeah, I'm just, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just got one question. It's nice to know that the pipes are okay and it can take the flow or the extra flow. But our new sewerage works that put in, is it working really well under capacity?
So that would be reference to the plant itself,
To
to
the
the
plant.
upgrades to the plant.
Yeah, that it can
Yes.
take any extra?
Yes, the plant, I believe, is at about 52% capacity. So
Oh,
we
wow.
we actually have more capacity in the plant than we do in the actual collection system at this
Yeah,
point. So
thank you.
that's a good thing.
That's great.
Question?
Just in terms of, maybe this is to the treasurer, this will be the last of our Ontario Invest money that is left there, is that correct?
No, there's still approximately $60,000 left.
Oh,
But that $60,000, the council decided to allocate towards IT improvements. So basically.
I looked at our reserves and I thought, that's okay.
Maybe I'll bring the report to council of with the total amount of funding. And, you know, where we're at this point and where the money was spent. For the next council meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a recommendation.
Recommendation that West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Lee Gosnell, Manager of Operations and Community Services regarding West Lawrence Sanitary Sewer Study. And the West Elgin Council approved the payment from Ontario Invests money in the amount of $21,493.20 plus applicable taxes to Spreet and Associates London for the West Lawrence Sanitary Sewer Study.
Over and seconder, moved by Leatham, seconded by Cameron, all in favor. That is carried. Next item, Lee.
Large item collection.
Yeah.
So I felt that this would be a good time to bring this report forward, seeing as how we just had our annual report from the metrics. And obviously, our landfill is a huge asset to the municipality, and we want to try and protect that and extend that life as much as possible. So in past years, back when there was just collection for the two towns, collection was back in previous to that, I guess I should say the waste connection, approximately 1 to 2. That time was just the two towns. That spring, we found that it took second crew on. Obviously, with everybody being stuck at home that spring, they took the opportunity to. But we did notice a trend starting at that point already that program, the items that were being put curbs. The items that were being put curbside were not necessarily all large items. So the intent of the program was to collect big bulky items like mattresses and couches, things like that, that would be probably a bit of a struggle to get to the landfill. So there was a lot of that put out. We did that year. We did collect everything. Obviously, we didn't want to leave a mess along the curbside, and we hope that it was just an anomaly. With the fact with COVID going on that spring, we did put out notice, and we tried to provide some education during the course of the year as to what actually constituted as a large item. And then the following spring in 2021, we certainly had that was with the rural area as well. And we found the same thing again. That spring, we had 2 crews from Waste Connections and 2 crews of municipal staff. So it took 4 crews, 5 days to collect all the items during that week. And once again, I would say that probably 60 to 70% of it were things that could be placed as part of normal collection. And the issue is that, you know, typically they would put that one large item out and then they would pile all the small items around it and on top of it. So you're essentially having to collect everything anyways to get that one large item picked up. The other big issue that we have with this is when we're collecting curbside, especially during large item, they're collecting with the truck. So everything that's put out, if we're collecting it all goes into one truck. It's all commingled. So whether it's plastic bottles or whether it's scrap steel like kids toys, or we've had tires put out curbside, like you know, automotive tires. So all of that stuff is all going into one truck, whether it be Waste Connections truck or whether it be our truck. And it goes to the landfill. You know, we try our best. It was a big task for us because it was not only the crews that were collecting it, but it was also our staff that was at the landfill receiving it and trying to sort through it somewhat the best we could to get out the big stuff. It was yard waste, brush, bags of leaves. It was just everything put out there. So when it comes in, obviously all that material, the majority of it is being landfilled. So it, you know, recycling, there's no way of reducing that amount. We did look at other municipal programs around. What we're suggesting is that we do away with the large item collection curbside. And we go to that same week of the year. We typically have it in that first 2 weeks of May, the first or second week of May. We go to I guess we'll call it a free disposal week at the municipal landfill. So residents can bring items that would normally, so typically if a resident brings a large item into the landfill, there's a charge associated with that. What we're suggesting is that we offer that week where residents can bring those items to the landfill at no charge. This is kind of twofold. It's going to help reduce costs associated with trying to continue this program curbside. And the other big one, and I think the most important one, is if the material's coming into the landfill, if residents are bringing it in, we have the ability to sort it and make sure that everything that can be recycled or it is done properly, and that only the true items that need to be landfilled are actually making it into the landfill. So it's going to reduce the quantity of material going into the landfill greatly.
So through the chair, so would additional staff be required over that week at the landfill, or how do you anticipate that occurring?
I would suspect that we would probably, along with the landfill attendant, I would suspect we would probably have an additional 1 to 2 staff members for that week at the landfill. But that would be, you know, we had those staff members at the landfill this year working as well, trying to deal with the material that was coming in.
So just to throw it out there, what would happen if you just eliminated the cost for large items and let people bring them when they could? Would extra staff be needed if you did this over the whole year?
I guess my thing with that is if the resident took a large item to Ridge Landfill in Blenheim or to Green Lane Landfill, you know, even a resident of Southwold that has Green Lane Landfill right in their own backyard would not be allowed to bring an item into the landfill at no charge. Waste is an expensive business.
And going to get much more expensive.
I'm just thinking of, you know, the amount that we picked up over the last 2 years at the curbside is probably way more than what people normally would be delivering to the landfill. So I don't know. And I'm wondering if we're going to end up with more things dumped on the side of the road because, well, I want to avoid that cost, so.
Teresa, your question?
Yes, through the chair. I'm just really worried about dumping on the side roads. I totally understand there were a lot of items on the sides of streets just in my area that could have been recycled, as Mr. Gosnell has said, and just looking to see what other options we could have. And then thinking outside of, in our rural area, most people have access to a larger vehicle to take a small, say, love seat or an old, bar fridge or even a large fridge or something. And, but there's others that don't. They don't have those means. They work, so the times might not work for them. So I'm thinking of the residents that don't have a means to take something to the dump. I know myself, if I'm making a dump run and I know somebody's moving or whatever, I will take that item and pay the $10 for the mattress that they need to get rid of. So I just looking of those type of people that don't have a way to bring the bigger, larger items out. And I'm afraid, yeah, we're going to have some dumping on the sides of the roads. We already do on Kerr here, tires and such. So I'm just thinking about those types of things.
So we have this in Southwest Middlesex. It's the only way I've ever known it. We have 2 Saturdays a year. And the local Lions Club, they do advertise for a $5 donation. They will pick up anybody's stuff. It's a fundraiser for them. So I
Nice.
don't know if we contact, say, Kiwanis, Optimus, Lions, something like that, to see if they'd be willing to do that. And basically, if you called the municipal office, they'd give you the number of whoever you need to for your free dump day for those that don't have pickup trucks or anything at their disposal. So there's always that option. We'd have to contact them to see if they'd be interested in doing it, but it is a good fundraiser for them.
I think it's a great idea to streamline it this way because, well, first of all, I always, who's going through our villages those weeks and looking at everyone's lawns thinking, oh boy, where am I moving to? But yeah, I just think it would be a great, and then what could be recycled is recycled, and what can't be, as Lee already said, does end up in the landfill. But yeah, then the extra costs of the employees would be much less, obviously, than what they are now when they're going from house to house to house to pick up what wasn't picked up. And then there's also no discussions about, well, I had my stuff out, but nobody got it, because that was something I heard a lot this year. I had everything out the day I was supposed to, but nobody got it. Well, if all your neighbors got it, then obviously it was picked up, but we did go down that street. So it would eliminate some of that, and staff time would be used a little more resourcefully. So those are my thoughts on it. I think it's, you were thinking, sorry, I was looking here in my notes, but I can't find it. You were thinking a whole week or 2 days, or?
The idea was to provide a week, so the days
here I
that
see it.
the days
Yeah.
that the dump are open for that week, that it would be.
I see it here, free large item week to be held annually. That's, yeah. Could we? I don't even know about waiving the fees, more just thinking, just to encourage people to come those times with their larger items. Or maybe even a reduced fee, because it costs us how much to get rid of all those couches. Correct?
Well, they go in the landfill, and that's the thing with the large item is, especially things like mattresses. It's a volume thing. Doesn't matter how many times you run over a mattress, it still looks like a mattress. So it takes up a lot of space. So it certainly certainly the big point is to try and get it so that we can actually have it sorted. During the large item collection, which we did take in, I think in the report I mentioned, and I'm talking on a volume basis, we probably took in between a quarter and a third of a year's worth of collection in that 1 week. And I would say that a good portion of that was stuff that could have been dealt with through recycling and not ended up in the landfill.
Well, there was a day when if you bought a new mattress and they delivered the mattress to you, they would take the old mattress away, but now health and safety doesn't allow them to do that, so that is an ugly beast, a mattress to get rid of. And you know, you see people driving around with them tarped to the top of their cars, which is kind of a unsafe practice. I really like the idea of what Janet brought forward here, because I know that that if you've got something to get rid of, if the service clubs would be interested in doing that, I think a lot of residents would much rather give the service club a donation to be able to take that to the landfill than give Gary $10 at the landfill to get rid of it. And so we'd be doing a couple of things, still keeping the waste stream off the side of the road. Plus, if the service clubs were interested in helping them out to raise some money that they always keep in our community for benefit. So I don't know how you want to proceed here. Do you want to do a bit more investigation and have a more encompassing resolution as to how we're going to proceed? I think that this as Lee has pointed out, picking things up that shouldn't be going to the landfill site, that's I think really important for the life of our landfill. And as our report come this morning, this council's done a really excellent job in adding a good number of years to our life of our landfill because of decisions we've made around this table. So how do you want to proceed here? Do you want to do some investigation, or do you want to deal with this?
I
item right
think
now?
we need some direction, because we're at the point where we need to start developing the garbage collection information for next year. We're very close to information for that, so.
I think Bonnie was here first.
I was gonna suggest that I am willing to work with this. I think it's reasonable. I don't think we need to pin down any service club because that can change any given year, but it's certainly a great suggestion and hopefully it works out. I wonder if we could do a spring and fall week instead of just 1 week is my compromise request.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to add that with the ongoing increase in fuel, this is one of our efficiencies that we are introducing as Waste Connection. They are picking up they are doing large item pickup. They have approached us just recently as they are struggling providing services to municipalities with the high fuel prices. There is going to be a hefty increase. I can tell you this right now. Inflation right now is at 7.6%. Not sure what they're going to do about fuel prices for this year. Right now, basically, we left the issue open with them. But, if we can eliminate that route, I'm pretty sure that's going to bring a little bit of savings to the potential increase next year.
Well, I think we all have to be very perfectly clear with the residents going forward that because of what's happening in the world, we're going to be not into the cushions of the couch trying to come up with nickels and dimes. We're gonna be underneath the couch and because Lee, what's gravel gonna look like? And it's gonna be astronomical. Everything that we touch is going to go up dramatically, and that's gonna have to be reflected back into how we, we're going to be faced with the fact that we are gonna have to make service cuts. And so we might as well recognize that right off the bat and try to come up the best way that we can mitigate the impact on our residents, but this council has not created the problem, but we're gonna be responsible for the solution, and the residents are gonna have to be part of that solution also. Oh, it'll be painful to some, but that's just the reality of what's going to happen. Yes, Angela.
Red, I will be honest, and I don't disagree with you, your worship, it's residents don't like change. Canada Day this year is different, and I am taking flack over it because it's different. Because they don't like change. So I'm, I don't disagree with it, but I don't disagree with what Lee is asking for. I witnessed what went on in my ward, and in some cases, I honestly and truly believe that entire household contents were put at the curb in West Lorne. In several occasions and left for staff to pick up. And then the house went for sale. I can think of 4 in my ward. So, and so that goes on the tax base, knowing that that resident is leaving our municipality. So we have to be mindful of what we do in the future.
And it's funny how times change. I can remember back when the large pickup would be held in the villages. And it was a carnival-like atmosphere that people from other jurisdictions would come to our jurisdiction to look at their stuff. And if there was something that was kind of cool, they'd pick it up, take it away. You remember that, don't you?
That would happen this time.
Yeah. So you can use it, take it.
There was lots of that going on.
So I guess getting back to the question, do you want to deal with this report from Lee today and give direction to the fact that we're changing the way that we're going to do business, and then with that try to come up with a maybe an alternative solution that residents can utilize? Or do you want to look into this a little bit deeper and come up with a more comprehensive? Okay, then we have a resolution. If you'd read that resolution.
I guess my only question to you guys for the resolution is, do you want, Bonnie asked about doing it in spring and fall. Do you want to just do it once? Do you want to do it
Yeah.
spring and fall? Reasonable. Okay, so that West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Lee Gosnell, Manager of Operations and Community Services, and that West Elgin Council supports staff decision to eliminate large item collection beginning in 2023 and replace it with a free large item week at the municipal landfill, both in spring and fall.
Over and seconder. Moved by Rowe, seconded by Tellier. All in favor? That is carried.
And we can send out maybe some communications to the local
Yeah,
service groups
there's
to
an
see if anyone's
opportunity.
interested. Doesn't mean they have to, but yeah, I just think it's an opportunity for them to.
Opportunities knocking. Okay, moving right on here, Integrity Commissioner with the pending retirement of our Commissioner Mark McDonald. We're again entering a whole new world of,
So I think we're first up is the procedural bylaw.
oh, yes, it is.
So this is, I just want to see some feedback, wanted to receive feedback from you guys, if you're comfortable with it, not comfortable with it. A procedural bylaw is ever changing. It's not always something that stays the same as you go. But I think this will make life a little more, make council meetings a little more fluid when it comes forward. And some of them I just have to, some of those amendments I just had to make. So don't know if there's any questions, if you guys like it, don't like it.
Well, again, it's a living document that moves and shakes, and times change, people change, issues change.
Yeah.
So
I think this works well for this council. Hopefully it will continue for the next one. I don't know. The one part I did have to do was change the inaugural council meeting date just to meet the MEA. So,
Funny.
Yes, through the chair, a couple of clarifications, I guess. The first part, I agree that there is a place for consent items, as with many municipalities. So what would be the process if a member wanted to move the discussion to another point in the agenda? Does that happen ahead of time, or can it happen as?
either or, you can advise me ahead of time that you know you're going to want to discuss this. Otherwise, once we get to the consent agenda, each member can request to remove an item.
Okay. Yeah, and I just wanted to point out there is a 12th issue of Robert's rules now, so
Yeah,
that
there's
could be changed.
Yeah, no updated.
And the idea of the videotaping consent, I mean, that occurs now, so that phrase is outdated as well.
Mm.
And then the inaugural meeting at 7 p.m. and there'd be no business attending that meeting, is that right?
That's the way it's always been, the way you guys were inaugurated too. Yeah, you just you guys do your oaths of office, council does their oaths of office. It's more of a ceremonial.
Yeah.
Type, and we held it like last time we held it. It's a community event kind of thing.
Yeah. So I agree that the idea of having, it just seems really weird to have an old council after an election still have one meeting.
It's not.
And so we're not doing that now. Is that right?
No, we are still doing that though. So the election's October 24th and you meet on November the 10th. That's your final meeting.
Oh, I guess I misread that then.
Yeah, it's just got to be moved earlier. It used to be the Elections Act stated that you couldn't be sworn in till the first Monday of December.
Right.
And now you're being sworn in November 15th. Could be sworn in anytime after November 15th.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
they shortened that period. It used to be that some councils would have 2 or 3 meetings during that period of time where they really couldn't do anything. It was the old council. So did I maybe make that? But yeah. That's the way that's what I'm just clarifying that up there, but.
So the first inaugural meeting will be on the first Thursday of the new term of council.
Which is at this point in time would be the 17th of November.
Okay, I was thinking it was the first Thursday period. But it's really the first.
I guess the
meeting.
first so inaugural meeting should be held the first Thursday of the new, so a new term of council regardless starts November 15th. Your last, this council's last day of term as per the Municipal Elections Act is November 14th.
Okay,
Regardless after that, nothing, you are no
okay,
longer- yeah.
I didn't know that. So-
Sorry,
so
yeah,
that-
maybe I should
that makes
clarify that a
sense
bit
now.
more sense in the Municipal
Yeah.
Elections Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, they changed the terms. It used to be your term ended November 30th. Now it ends then.
Okay, yeah, maybe clarification about when the term ends would be
Yes.
good somewhere in there. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, resolution please.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Janet Nethercock Clerk, re-amendments to the procedural bylaw, and that West Elgin Council provide any feedback on the proposed draft amendments to the procedural bylaw, and West Elgin Council direct staff to return with the final version of the amended procedural bylaw at the next council meeting.
Over by Rowe and seconded by Leatham, all in favor? Carried.
So then the next one is the Integrity Commissioner. So Mark McDonald has provided his notice that he is not going to be joining us, and we just basically need a resolution to join in and stay with the county's version of it. Think it's worked well. Elmer, I believe, is the only municipality in Elgin County that does not use the same system.
And again, that's another one of these things. We had very good service at a reasonable price from Mark McDonald. I don't know where it's going to end up now. And you know, costs of investigations were very, very reasonable through Mark, but now to get a law firm at $400 and some odd an hour to do this is gonna be,
It's gonna be a little more expensive.
it's gonna be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Mark did a fair number of municipalities. We joined in Elgin County and Middlesex County did a joint RFP the last time, so they used him together. I understand he got pretty busy with some councils. We were pretty lucky.
Yeah.
Other than had him just to have conversations, we were pretty good. So.
Okay, resolution.
The West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Jan and other clerk, re-integrity commissioner, closed meeting investigator, ombudsman for information purposes. And that West Elgin Council partner with the County of Elgin and interested local municipal partners in a joint RFP to secure a new service provider to fulfill the transparency and accountability roles of the integrity commissioner, closed meeting investigator, and municipal ombudsman.
Mover and seconder. Moved by Leatham, seconded by Talia, all in favor, that's carried. Finance and administration. Hey Magda, wastewater treatment plant.
Yes, the project that we've been patiently waiting for. So we had a meeting with RV Anderson 3 weeks ago. They are currently deferring the tendering process to the fall. And the reason for it is because of the cost. They did quite a few tenders during the summer months, and the cost ranges from there's just not a close pricing within the vendors. It just, the range is so huge. It starts at 1.5 million and can go up to $4.5 million. They are predicting that now is not a good time to tender, as all the contractors are extremely busy, and they just throw the number basically. So their recommendation is to wait to the fall, September at least, and to see if the market settles down a little. Regardless of that, we will be short roughly $800,000 for the mechanical refurbishment of the plant. So the grant funding that we have been approved for basically will cover mechanical replacement of the plant. Dredging of the lagoons right now, it's out of the question. There is money in OSIF funding that we could utilize down in a year when mechanical replacements are done, so we do have an option.
So what you're saying is we have time, but we don't have money.
We don't have much time either. But the idea is to do the mechanical replacement first, refurbish the entire plant, and then do the dredging of the lagoons.
Okay, everybody satisfied with that? Any questions? Mover and seconder for the resolution, please.
Do you want me to read it first?
Yes.
That West Elgin Council hereby receives a report from Magda Badura, CIO Treasurer, Rodney Wastewater Treatment Plant Refurbishment Project, and that West Elgin Council directs staff to transfer $800,000 previously budgeted to lagoon dredging towards mechanical upgrades as part of the Rodney Wastewater Treatment Plant Refurbishment Project, and that the cost of lagoon dredging at the Rodney Wastewater Treatment Plant be covered by the 2022 OCIF funding.
Okay, mover and seconder. Hammer and Leatham, all in favor? Okay. Mileage policy.
Yes, so very, this kind of, I'm doing this in conjunction with the county. The same report will be brought to county council, I believe, next week. So our mileage rate was never revised in 12 years with the high cost of fuel. I think, it just makes sense to raise it up to 61 cents per kilometer. And, so we're aligned with CRA rates as well. And going forward, instead of having separate bylaws and policies, I would recommend that we follow CRA guidelines and rates.
Fine.
Just curious what the current rate is.
0.495.
495, what's that?
50 cents.
That's what CRA says?
No, this is our rate.
Oh, what's CRA say?
Municipal, 61 cents.
There's really no argument there. I guess if Canada revenue, if Canada revenue recognizes it, it's probably, yeah.
Okay, the resolution, so that West Ogden Council hereby receives the report from Magda Badura, CAO Treasurer, HR 1.6 mileage policy. And that West Ogden Council hereby approves the amended HR 1.6 mileage policy. And that West Ogden Council approved the 2022 CRA recommended mileage rate at 0.61 cents per kilometer effective July 1, 2022.
Over and seconder by Rowe, seconded by Talia, all in favor? Carried. All right, committee and board reports from council committees. Anybody have anything funny?
I just wanted to update council through the chair on the Port Glasgow Dance Pavilion anniversary celebration. A group discussed this and a date has been set of August the 28th. It's a Sunday afternoon from 2 to 4. There was a budget of $200 back last year, I guess, when we thought we might have it last year. We have secured the Ron Pierce Family Band, which has entertained there over the many years, and they are willing to entertain there over that time at a reduced rate of $300. So we think that that would be a really nice backdrop to our little celebration, and just planning a cake and refreshments and some speeches and invite local dignitaries, including the MP and MPP and warden. And so we wondered if we could have an additional $500 to be able to pay for that. So that's my report.
Anybody have an issue with $500? And I think along with that, certainly a big thank you to the group that's putting this together.
You'll be asked for a speech. You figured as much.
Well, I think we can handle that.
Need a resolution so that West Ogden Council hereby approve the allocation of $500 from council grants to the Port Glasgow Dance Hall anniversary celebration.
Well, by Talia, seconded by Leatham, all in favor? That is carried. Who's on your committee?
Jana and I and Angela Colbeard.
And Emily.
And Emily. And there was someone from the Port Glasgow Trailer Park, but she hasn't been responding to us, so we're just going.
Oh.
We tried to take into consideration what was actually happening there from the trailer park activities. And it seems to be a free.
Have you guys been in contact with Mike Baker?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's being very helpful, digging up photos, and he did say that he has all the copies of the old boys minutes, so he's
Right.
gonna look for the
Okay.
final directors, and we'll see. And up some invitations.
Good. Excellent. Okay. Any other reports from committees? The Rodney Agricultural Society minutes are available. Any questions on those? Yes, Bonnie?
I just wondered if the fireworks were offered at that meeting. Cause I see they don't have that listed as their activity, or maybe it was before the suggestion from last council.
Through the
Yeah.
chair, so the last meeting was May 14th that we had, and our council before that was the 9th, so it was spoken to at the last meeting on the 14th, and they were very appreciative and excited and making plans for it.
For the Friday night, is that the idea, or?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on Fair Board? Anything you want to add, since then, press, or?
No, they had a couple questions about bleachers and different things, but I think they sorted it all out with Lee and his staff, so that's about it. There's nothing really to add. They seem to be going right along.
Cool. West Elgin Community Center Board of Management. Don't think there's anything West Council's got questions.
Any new representatives have been appointed or come forward, or
For minor hockey.
figure skating too, wasn't it? That they needed someone to replace
haven't
Jim
heard-
too?
I can't speak to the figure skating. I know that minor hockey has appointed a new representative. Do you know anything about figure skating?
I believe, I know minor hockey has a new representative on the board, and I know that there is some discussions within the West Lawrence Skating Club about some new people to help take over that, but at this point, I don't think there's been anything from Jim about his position or his role on the board as of right now.
And it would have to come to council. We did the one for minor hockey, so figure skating would have to come to council.
Correct.
Okay, West Elgin Recreation Committee.
Yes, so there's their minutes and then there is the request letter there. So I have a resolution if you guys want to discuss that or.
Okay, everybody's read the request. What's your pleasure? Bonnie?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I would support that request. Is it $25 per event or 75 per event or
I believe it's 75 total.
total?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
25 per event, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So the resolution I have is that West Elm Council approve a council grant for $75 to provide a donation to the West Lawn Lawn Bowling Club for the youth lawn bowling nights.
Okay, moved by Rowe, seconded by Leatham, all in favor? It is carried.
I did have one other question.
Okay,
I just wondered if the mile markers, were those for the Miller Park? Is that? I'm just guessing.
Yeah, so the one for her Canada Day, yeah, so she's putting like Canada Day signs up. Like the
Oh.
trivia, is that what you're talking about or?
No, they just talked about mile markers in the minutes there.
Lee, do you know?
For Canada Day. They're
Yeah.
doing Canada Day.
Oh, so that's the mile markers. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
Canada Day
The-
walk.
The
So
mile markers are for the Canada Day.
Oh,
walk.
okay, temporary then.
yeah,
Okay.
you know how we do like the trivia on Facebook? She's going to do that throughout the park, kind of match them.
Okay.
We're doing like picnic style games and
Yeah.
crafts and rock painting, I think was Tressa, correct me if I'm wrong. Rock painting, and then they're going to do like activity, Canada Day trivia, walking around the park was what I think we
Okay.
had decided, because due to rules and regulations, we can't bring in the bouncy castles and stuff as we have in the past. So we're trying to be creative and do different things this year. So
won't be a window safe in West Lawn. Okay, any other questions?
Accounts?
Accounts, all right.
That the mayor and treasurer are hereby authorized to sign payment vouchers number 6A amounting to $234,958.17 in settlement of general road, water, and arena accounts, including electronic fund transfers number 5289 to 5342, online payments 936 to 942, check numbers 25946 to 25951, and payroll for pay period 12.
Okay, you've all heard the resolution, and I guess this is the first one that you've not had to compile yourself, so
Right.
happy with the system.
Yes.
I think it was all pretty good. Everybody's had their questions answered that they had. Mover and seconder for that resolution, moved by Rowe and seconded by Talia. All in favor? Now, do I keep asking you if we got the money? Okay. All right, that's carried. Correspondence, Elgin County Council highlights, anything in there that Questions on? Funny?
Yeah, I was interested in reading about the road reconciliation or whatever it was called.
Yes.
And I'm interested in knowing what the positives and negatives are for our municipality in terms of either losing a road or gaining a road from the county and how the maintenance costs work and so forth.
So Lee and I sit on that committee. Lee might be able to answer that better. He sat in on when we were evaluating the roads. Do you want to turn your mic on and answer?
Well, I guess certainly the roads that are county, the county roads within the municipality of West Lorne or West Elgin, our municipality has provided funding each year from the county to do maintenance on those roads. So it's municipal staff, municipal resources that maintain the roads, but Elgin County still looks after the capital, any capital programs on those roads. So major reconstruction, resurfacing, those types of things. So certainly if they're, you know, as far as roads being transferred, if a road is, you know, downloaded from the county to the municipality, then capital expenses for that road there would come along with that transfer. You know, so we're still in the process right now. This is something that's being put forth by the consultant, but certainly nothing at this point has been set in stone yet. There are, I can't remember the exact number right now, but there are many more roads. There is more infrastructure proposed to be downloaded than there is certainly to be uploaded.
Yes.
They looked at both ways. They certainly looked at both ways, but based on the criteria that the consultant is using right now, there stands to be more downloaded than there would be uploaded.
I think.
So there would certainly have to be a change in the funding arrangement.
So just to follow up to that, so that capital, from my reading of that report, the capital would only follow if there is a requirement in the next few years for capital repairs to that strip of low road, but after that, it wouldn't continue on. And I'm wondering about the maintenance costs as well. So that is assumed by the municipality then.
Correct.
So there is no advantage really to our municipality. It's all a disadvantage, really.
Well, my comment to county council when we discussed this is this an exercise in just rearranging the deck chairs because there is only one taxpayer? And are you going to provide us with financial information to be able to determine over and above what the consultant is telling us that there's going to be a benefit to our taxpayers for going through this process? Because if there isn't, let's just walk away.
Like a percentage less to the county from
Well,
the
no,
pie.
there's only the one taxpayer.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
but rather than sending a larger portion to the county from us, let's
Yeah.
keep what portion of that to pay for
Yeah,
the
so
download.
there's gonna have to be a significant detailed financial component to this, and it's not something that I see county council at this point in time jumping up and down saying, hell yeah, we gotta do this. I think there's a fair bit of reluctance in just how this is all gonna turn out, so more information to come. You got a question, Andrew?
No.
Anything else from county? All right, Professional Engineers Association, retention of professional engineers at municipalities. Well, you could add quite a number of people to that list. Treasurers and CAOs and building inspectors and
And we consult as needed.
yeah, unfortunately, people are not gravitating to the public sector because I'm just tired of getting screamed. Even I was listening this morning that MPPs are now getting panic buttons to push for situations that public gets unruly and they feel they're in danger, and they can push the panic button. So, any action required there? East Gwillimbury, letter to Honorable Doug Ford, RE Bill 109. What's your pleasure there? Noted, Elijah Orthodox Church, notice of the picnic. That's just an information.
Appreciate the notice.
Oh, they have to provide notice for under AGCO rules if they're alcohol to be. Alcohol,
Any organization that gets the liquor license has to notify the municipality.
if they're gonna be,
If the special occasions
Yes.
permit that's issued is outdoors,
yes, it has to be.
then there has to be public notice, there has to be notice given to the municipality.
Next item up, request for noise exemption for fireworks. Notice, okay,
No.
okay, well, he sells fireworks. And
no, but
what?
Your microphone's on.
So there was fireworks that were let off in West Lorne on the long weekend, and I got phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. I know, but that's the problem, is that people are letting fireworks off and we have bylaws.
I would hope that this gentleman would understand that there's a time for fireworks and 2 o'clock in the morning is the time for fireworks.
In his approval, we can give him, if you choose to approve it, you can give him a time frame. I mean, he's just asking for the fact that he can set him off on days that aren't listed in our noise bylaw. That's the one request, but
Is this a one-up?
there's 2 days, 2 dates. They're to honor his deceased wife.
Now you've spoke with him?
Yes,
Okay, well, let's set up the parameters of when he can do it.
yes, you can set those. He wants to do them July 2nd and August 20th. So July 2nd is fairly close to the Canada Day one.
But I mean, hour wise,
Yes, hour wise, yeah, you can set a time frame. Like they can't be set off past, they can't be set off past 10 o'clock, 9, whatever.
10 o'clock, yeah,
Still light at 9 o'clock.
still late on them.
10 o'clock would be good.
So I guess my other request would be, he notify everybody in Angelo Drive that he is doing this.
I would think that he would want to notify people to be able to take advantage of it.
Absolutely, I have no problem with that, but I would just want to ensure that other people are notified in and around him. Some of the calls that I received over the long weekend were in regards to concerns over children being woken up. Some of them were in regards to horses that ran through gates and paddocks and livestock that,
Town?
no. Some of them were in town, some of them weren't, and just all of that stuff. So just
Yeah.
let's be courteous to our neighbors. I absolutely support what he's asking for, but at the same time, we need to be courteous to people around us that maybe don't like fireworks. I love fireworks.
So do we want to give him a notice range? Like 120 meters from his property is the way we would do it for planning. We would have to provide him the addresses. Or do you want to just leave it general? Like, I don't know.
I would think,
Just walk.
I don't think we want to get into
Okay.
it too deep. So do we have a resolution to,
So the West Elgin Council hereby approved an exemption to the West Elgin Noise Bylaw number 2004-77 with the following restrictions. All fireworks must cease no later than 10 PM. All neighbors must be notified. And that West Elgin Council also grants an exception to the requirement of placing notice of the application to request an exemption as per section 8.b of the noise bylaw. So basically, that means he was supposed to provide 20 days notice. But the timing of this request got a little lost in staff circulation. And he wouldn't have had time to give that and be able to have it for the July 2nd that he needed it for the meeting. So that's the resolution.
Okay, you all heard the resolution, mover and seconder. Moved by Rowe, seconded by Latham, all in favor, and that is carried. Upcoming meetings. For counties transit. First council, 26th Tri-County Water Board. For your information, moving on to notice of motion. Anybody have notice of motion?
No, but I had a meeting to add if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
So Heritage Homes meeting is 1 PM this coming Monday, the 27th of June.
Statements, inquiries by members. Seeing none, matters of urgency. Seeing none, we're into our bylaw section, tax ratio.
That bylaw 2022-40 being a bylaw to set the transition ratios to the tax levies for the year 2022 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder. Tellier and. Latham. All in favor? Carried.
So the bylaw 2022-41 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority and the Corporation of the Municipality of West Elgin be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder. Rowe and Cameron, all in favor? Carried.
Bylaw 2022-42 being a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw 2021-69 to provide for various fees and charges for the municipality of West Elgin for the calendar year 2022 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder. Tellier and Rowe, all in favor? That's carried.
So about the confirming bylaw, that bylaw 2022-43 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on the 23rd of June, 2022 be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Mover and seconder. Tellier. Cameron. All in favor? Carried.
So that the council of the municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourn at 11:38 a.m. to meet again at 9:30 a.m. on July 21st, 2022, or at the call of the chair.
Mover and seconder. Rowe and Latham, all in favor? That is carried. Right.